Cap.
Tim Pool just made a video about, and it just popped up in my timeline. I glanced at it, and literally, I mean, glanced at it because I couldn't even get through the entire thing. And this, falls in line with a lot of the points that I've been saying about knowing white people better than white people know themselves. They don't know their history. They don't understand what capitalism really is, which is a system of exploitation. They believe in the myth of whiteness and the myth of white people and the myth of Christianity and how they're the light of the world and how they should be guiding things. It's like a sort of religious solipsism. And all religion was used to do is basically get people to fall in line based off of something that's intangible. Like, even I would like to believe that the intangible things do have some sort of meaning, some sort of concept, ideology. Ideologies are not tangible, right? Like the whole concept, even when you have like a football team and you're trying to build some sort of sense of camaraderie, right? Like that's not something that's tangible. But it's funny watching these, white Christians. They even had Jared Taylor up there. I mean, not Jared Taylor, Richard Spencer, right? Who we know is, a foaming at the mouth white supremacist, right? "Oh, I want. What is he? What did he say? When they look up, I want them to see my face. When I look down at them, whatever he said. I mean, just foaming at the mouth, racist. And now he's up there talking about Christianity and Jesus. And what's so crazy is nobody points that out in the comment section. This is the whole thing of white Christian nationalism, because white Christian nationalism is nothing more than white supremacy, paired up with Christianity and twisted and warped in a way to try to facilitate this idea that white people are the tip of the spear when it comes to them being the moral compass. The crazy thing is that Christianity literally comes from Semitic peoples and black people, right? Because again, who popularized monotheism? Akhenaten of the 18th dynasty, a black man. But so when you look at the origins of Christianity, and you got to remember that Christianity is a compilation of books. It's not just one book; it's a compilation of books. And then it's been things taken out like at the Council of Nicaea and you know things like that. It's been twisted, warped, manipulated, and used in order to control the masses. And you saw this even I mean, it's funny, we were talking about the Battle of Teutoburg in the Teutoburg Forest in Germany, and how the Romans went in there, and we got on the topic of the expansion of Christian, the expansion of literacy, which came through the expansion of Christianity. Right? They always send anytime white people are trying to conquer an area, or the powers that be amongst white people are trying to conquer. They always go in there with the missionaries. They always go in there with the Christians. Right? It goes back to what Desmond Tutu said. Right? The white man came, we had the land and they had the Bible. The white man said, let us close our eyes and pray. And so we closed our eyes and prayed. And when we opened our eyes, the white man had the land and we had the Bible. That's a cardinal saying that, a Catholic cardinal who pointed that out. What white people seem to fail to understand, especially white men, because they want to believe in the myth of whiteness. They want to believe that the world will fall into moral decay or moral collapse, if they, aren't standing up there on the mountaintop holding up the lion sword. And it's just nonsense. I mean, if you look at the rest of the world, and you look at the rest of the world's family, where are white Western men saying that they want to go to get wives? They're talking about passport pros. They're talking about leaving and going to other countries that tend to not be Christian. I know there's some Christian ones out there, but I'm saying that's where they're going. Or I mean, hell, even if you want to go to Latin America, oh, I'm gonna get me a Latin American woman. They're Catholic. And we already know how Protestants feel about Catholics. So it's funny how these white Christian nationalists will sit there and make these claims that how just how Christian America needs to be, and Christianity holds everything together, but yet everything is not together in a nation where you are the dominant members of society. You got to go to the browner countries in the world to actually find a wife who plays her role. Think about that. Not to mention the fact that the problem is, you get this expression, money is the root of evil, right? And you get these white folks that they want Christianity to be a thing. It's a thing. It's the guiding force in everything. Christianity and white Jesus must come first, and you must have Christ in your bosom. And money is evil, and money is secondary. No, money is first. I do not I, I do not understand, nor can I wrap my head around these white Christians that love to run around because you got this whole, again, the myth of white people. That white people are the only hardworking people in the world, and that if you work hard, right, the employer class, the owner class will recognize your hard work and reward your hard work with actual tangible resources that you can then go off and take care of your family and play the patriarchal role. Without gainful employment, there is no patriarchy. I don't care how much you got the sweet twinkle of white Jesus in your eye. You white men can't even get white women to cooperate if they're not gainfully employed. Again, this is the same thing that African Americans went through when African Americans had to deal with, redlining, blockbusting, Jim Crow, eminent domain, urban renewal, convict leasing, debt peonage, 1955 Highway Commission Act, destroying our communities, destroying our business districts so that we can't be competitive. This is the same thing we went through. Now the white boys are going through it, and they're acting like this is a new concept to the world. Where it's not supposed to be a situation where they can't make it. And then instead of blaming the actual powers that be and the people that control, you know, global capital, they start trying to make a moral argument about it. They start running, oh no, the reason is people aren't working hard enough and personal responsibility. You can work hard till the skin off of the tip of your fingers falls off, and it gets down and it whittles down to the bone. At the end of the day, these employers don't want to pay you. They never want to pay you. Your history is rife with the reality of them not wanting to pay you. I mean, Watt Taylor is just one surf revolt in Europe. Then after that, again, you have slavery. The whole reason I'm listening to Tim Pool and Richard Spencer and whoever that other guy is that's up there that's usually on the Manosphere shows and whatnot, and they're talking about what the founding fathers intended in Christianity, and the whole reason why separation of church and state is there is because the European powers that be that were funding everything, because these were corporations that were funding everything, did not want fighting in the new colonies. They did not want there to, because they knew, because there was fighting in Europe over religion. I mean, most of the people who left Europe and were looking for a better life in America were leaving because of religious persecution. So they didn't want that to happen in America. You see, and even the founding fathers recognized that that would be a problem if you were to make a state religion and you got X amount of Catholics in your country and you got X amount of Protestants in your country. It would immediately go into civil war after 1776. If they actually said that there was a state religion. I mean, hell, the Mormons went all the way out to Utah to get the fuck away from everybody else so that they could go off and engage in their polygamous lifestyles. You see, so you know between that, then you have slavery, right? And again, another event that happened that made the powers that be say, okay, we gotta separate the slaves and the indentured servants, was Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, which ironically is 100 years from when the America, uh, you know, stated its independence, right? But then after slavery, you ended up with the influx of immigrants. Got to bring the immigrants in, just like the immigrants are being brought now in order to drive down the cost of labor, right? Then you had the Gilded Age where they didn't want to pay anybody and they had children running around, running crisscrossing machines and whatnot. I mean, again, you can go on Google and you can simply pull up their soot filled faces. Where is there any aspect of looking out for white people's best interest as a concept of the collective of whiteness? The enemy of white nationalism is white capitalism, because white capitalism is a classist system. It's not based off of whiteness. It's based off of them maintaining their position. Hence why the white oligarchs and the white capitalist class, they like a multi-ethnic society because that's more people that are underneath their control. They want to have a new world order and global empire. They can't have a global empire with a white nationalism floating around, acting like the masses of white people that they've never seen as on their level in terms of the white oligarchic elites. They've never seen them on their level, and so the idea that it's going to be team white versus everybody else, they have allowed that to go on as long as it has been useful to them, but it is no longer useful to them. So what do they want to do? They want to disrupt it. Same thing with patriarchy. Patriarchy is no longer useful to them. Again, we bring in feminism, drive the wages down even further. We can't tax 50% of the population, right? Now you have to damn near have a two-parent household in order to afford things. Patriarchy is virtually impossible at this point without men being gainfully employed and able to offer women more than they can offer themselves. And again, the purpose is, if the women are working and the men are working, well, who's raising the kids? The people at daycare, and then these public schools that are nothing more than glorified daycare. Because as we can see, many people, when they graduate high school, they don't know shit. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't even understand the interest on loans, right? They're not financially literate, right? That all of that is by design, because why would you educate a population that you want to remain ignorant so that you can control them? You see, the only reason why public schools exist is because after slavery ended, they needed to have a skilled population because of the industrial revolution. You had to have people that understood that could at least read, some GMP practices, some SOPs in terms of how to do things. You couldn't have just a completely illiterate population, because how do you disseminate instructions to an illiterate population? You see? And so capitalism has become more sophisticated over time. So how do you deal with it with an educated population? Now you have to come in and you have to feed them propaganda. Now you have to control, if you can't control the education per se, or which is to essentially not have them have an education. You need them to have an education, which can open the doors, for them to investigate, right? Be naturally inquisitive, right? Critically think. Shit. Now we got a bunch of critically thinking people. Damn it. So what do? Now you got to control Hollywood. You got to control the movies. You got to control the production, the ideas that go into people's heads. You have to control that, and you sell them ideas. I mean, look how effective hip hop has been at the destruction of the black community. Where the idea and the concept of the hip hop lifestyle is now, that's the preeminent culture of black culture. That was done intentionally. The people at the top of hip hop aren't even black. What's so crazy is some of the people that control hip hop are what do you want to call it? Some of the same people who were in positions of power, at the beginning of the age of exploration. super wealthy, French families. I mean, go and look at, who basically controls Drake. Like these, none of these people. I mean, it's like, how do these people control hip hop? Right? It's not just the one record label that you're looking at. You got Universal, and then you got a company above that, and then you got a company above that, like, and then you come to find out that it's these aristocratic, people in Europe that actually control hip hop.
About to follow the money behind the beef. Let's take a look. This is John Janik, the CEO of Interscope Records. Kendrick has a joint venture with Aftermath TDE and Interscope. But guess who John Janik's boss is? This is Sir Lucian Grange. He was knighted by the Queen of England herself. He's worth about $250 million, and he's the CEO of Universal Music Group, which happens to be Drake's label. Here's John Janik and Lucian Grange hanging out with Grammy darling Billie Eilish. It took a lot of digging, but I did find a photo of Kendrick and John Janik along with Steve Berman on the left over here, which is Lucian Grange's right-hand man. Lucian Grange and John Janik are industry giants who are definitely profiting off this beef between Kendrick and Drake, but who is the parent company that owns Universal Music Group? Who's Sir Lucian Grange's boss? Here we come to Vivendi. This is the parent company of Universal Music Group. The CEO of Vivendi is on your left here, Arnaud de Puyfontaine. He reports to Yannick Bolloré, the chairman of the board, and his family, the Bolloré Group, own tons of media all over the world. The Bolloré family is worth about $10 billion, but the company that they own, Vivendi, was started in 1853 by Napoleon III, which is actually the original Napoleon's brother's son. Crazy. Universal Music Group is just one of the companies owned by Vivendi, which is just one of the companies owned by the Bolloré Group. Their market cap for Universal is around $57 billion and has gone up a few billion since this beef started. Here's a list of some additional investors in Vivendi, including Vanguard and BlackRock, American investment firms who are involved in a lot of.
It's nuts. But see, many of you all don't understand, the degrees of separation when it comes to these elites controlling things. And so you buy into this very simplistic, a white man, who's about 35, and it's all about hard work and grit, and he's got his sleeves rolled up, and he loves Jesus, and he goes to church every Sunday, and he's raising his blonde-haired, blue-eyed family. Like, you guys got all these stupid ass fucking ideas in your head. At the end of the day, if the white elites don't want to fucking pay you enough to support your patriarchy is over. You should be having a fight with them. You should be having beefs with them. You should be mobilizing the rank and file, but you're not. You're focused on, oh, it's a culture war. Oh, it's because of the blacks. They're breathing up all the white man's air. Oh, it's because the Mexicans are coming across the border and bringing murderers and rapists. That's what the real problem is, as opposed to it being the white elites that don't want to pay you. It's what I said about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is sit there, oh, there's going to be a population collapse. Oh, I'm the richest man in the literal world with 204 billion dollars, right? And yet this man has done everything in his power to make sure that his employees cannot unionize, which means he doesn't want to pay them the type of wages that unions would demand for their employees so that they can go off and live, the American dream and facilitate these happy, nuclear families, right? That allow for the proper conditions to exist to facilitate and have, white children that grow up with resources and a supportive family and whatnot. Like, it makes no sense to sit there and talk about we want more white babies, but then you don't want to pay young white men in order to make enough money to support a patriarchal family to have more white babies. It makes, like, you all need to pay attention to that. You're running around. Your biggest problem is the blacks. Your biggest problem is the Muslims. Your biggest problem is the Mexican. That's your biggest. No, your biggest problem are the people that don't want to fucking pay you that look like you, but nobody can tell you shit. I don't know how many times I got to make videos talking about this, but every time I see it, I'm gonna speak on it. You guys keep thinking, oh, if we bring Christianity back, if we have the twinkle of Christ in our eye and the warmth of Jesus in our bosom, that everything will be okay. That's still, tell me how that's going to make them want to pay you. Tell me how you getting all of you and your friends and your homies and the football team that you played with. Okay, all of you are super ultra Christian now. Okay, how is that going to make Elon Musk want to pay you unionized wages? How is that going to make him pay you, anywhere from $35 to $40 an hour? How? Pick a job, pick an industry. They don't want to pay you. I don't know what I mean. This goes back to that clip that I had of the freaking the damn guy that worked basically for the union for the airports. He was like, they don't want to pay anybody. They don't want to pay the pilots. They don't want to pay the flight attendants. You know what I mean? They don't want to pay the mechanics. They don't want to pay the ground crew. That's everybody.
The major airlines created the regional industry as a way of lowering cost. They don't want to pay employees, and I don't care whether it's pilots, flight attendants, mechanics, ground help. They wanted to find a way of getting rid of experience. They wanted to find a way of getting rid of that expensive employee, and let's start this new industry and call it the regional industry.
80 hours a week and get paid for 20 of it, if we're lucky.
Pilots are paid hourly, and starting pay for first officers is typically $21 an hour.
My first year I made a little over 22,000 gross. Mm-hmm. And then you put into the fact that you have, mortgages and rent for a crash pad, student loan payments, car insurance and whatnot. By the time it all got said and done, we were literally starving at the end of the day.
To make ends meet, many pilots choose to commute, living in less expensive communities, far from the base they fly from.
Commuting has always been a part of aviation. But if you're making $16,000 or $18,000 a year and you're commuting, you're sleeping on the Barca lounger and the pilot's lounge. And that's not good, is it?
Let's get the facts out on the table on this, Mile. The average salary for a regional airline captain is $73,000. The average salary for a first officer at a regional airline is about $32,000, $33,000 a year. So
I'm not talking about average. There are some people, as you well know, who make $18,000 to $20,000 a year. We're not talking about average. We're talking about human beings who are flying my grandmother to Buffalo, right? Okay, so there are people there living this life, and it seems as if they're in an untenable position economically.
absolutely not, because there are many other people who earn less money than that, who work more days in these communities that can afford it and do it and do it responsibly. I just checked the web this morning. You can get a hotel room at the Newark airport for $50 a night.
I'm mistaken.
Now you see something. Now you see now. You done fucked up, you know that, don't you?
I
See what I'm saying?
I thought.
No, so, you know what I'm saying? That you done fucked up now, you know that, don't you?
Yeah,
You know you done fucked up, don't you? You know it, don't you? No, you done fucked up.
$50 a night, if you're making $20,000 a year, that adds up, doesn't it?
Adds up very quickly. If you have a base salary, roughly $1,200 a month is what you take home. $50 a night for a hotel is going to disappear relatively fast.
And, of course, I don't know if you've ever tried to find a hotel at that rate near Newark, but...
It's most likely not going to be in the safest of neighborhoods.
Low pay and high living costs have created an underground housing market in the airline industry. They're called crash pads. Some regional pilots let us inside their crash pads in a northeastern city if we agreed not to reveal their location.
So there's a margin there of profit. But if you can hold down pilot costs, if you can hold down flight attendant costs, maintenance costs, those carriers make even more money.
That's everybody short of what? The air traffic control? And again, when they busted up the unions, you saw what Reagan did to the air traffic controllers back in the 1980s. He forced them back to work because they could shut the whole country down. You know who else could shut the whole country down? truck drivers. If truck drivers went on strike, there'd be people starving out here. And what did they do recently? What did they tell everybody? And now there's an overabundance of truck drivers to where now they don't have to worry about strikes. They increased the number of CDL licenses that they were dishing out. Right? You could. A couple of years back, you couldn't look anywhere without there being some sort of get your CDL license, get your CDL license. Yeah, so now they have an overabundance of CDL drivers and they can drive wages down. There's plenty of videos on YouTube right now, truck drivers bitching about it ain't what it used to be. You used to make good money, and now it's funny style. And that was done intentionally, especially out there in California. You can pull up if you think I'm pulling shit out of my ass, you can go and you can Google it and you can pull, all these articles up on the internet. The internet is right there. All this information is there, and that's what's so crazy for white people to sit around and you all believe in all these, you believe in all these, what do you want to call it? All these like myths, right? When all the information is right there, right in front of you. You are in the age of information. You have more information than at any point in time in history. You can look at the past, you can look at the present, and you can kind of gauge the future. And you all don't do that. Your top level of thinking is let's see what the scripture says. That's your top level of thinking. That's how we got freaking Joe Biden and Donald Trump up there, arguing about who, their handicaps in golf and who's a better golfer and how healthy they are. Not Trump doesn't want to answer any of the questions. He just goes off on a tangent. Biden is up there with one foot in the grave and seems like he, if anybody's ever dealt with a senior person, that's literally what you deal with when you're dealing with, and it's cute and funny when, it's your grandparent and they're taken care of and they're retired and they're just saying crazy things while they're, sitting on the couch watching the football game. It's not cute, when it's somebody, who, has, access to nuclear codes, right, and is making all these decisions. As much as Colonel McGregor has this little, white nationalist dog whistles, right? I would much prefer Colonel McGregor up there, on the Republican side. Most likely he would be on that side. Colonel McGregor up there than Donald Trump. And and when it comes to, a liberal that I think would be electable, probably Jon Stewart on the Democrat side. The Democrats should be scrambling to try to find somebody. But again, none of these parties address African American issues, so it's like, what do I care? Black people need to come up with their own plan on, how we're going to devise, because, real talk. I mean, they do want the black vote. They always want the black vote, but and they might be able to go without it, but if nobody's going to address our issues, then fuck them. That's my attitude. Black people should focus more at the local level and places where we are demographically the majority. We should at least control that. But there's still a problem because it's like Detroit. It doesn't matter if you control the politics if you don't have any means of production. That was the whole issue with Detroit. You take the life's blood out of the city, you take the auto industry out of the city, right? Because of globalization, and you go and you manufacture these parts in Mexico and everywhere else, right? Then at the end of the day, you don't have gainfully employed people, and therefore you don't have any tax dollars. You don't have a taxable base, and therefore, as a government, you're ineffective to actually be able to do things. You can't fix the roads. You can't maintain the infrastructure. Then you have a declining population because people got to find work elsewhere. Then you end up with this huge, patchwork of properties and urban sprawl that costs even more money for you to maintain. So then you have to raise taxes because as your population goes down, you have to raise taxes. Detroit got so bad that they had to start telling people like, look, we're not coming out here anymore. Like in terms of police services, in terms of power, they needed people to move because you'd have one lone house, It's like, yo, we not coming all the way out here. You're way out of jurisdiction. Nobody even lives over here anymore. I mean, y'all should go and y'all should look into it. About the police response in Detroit and them telling people like, look, you gotta bring it, underneath our umbrella. You're outside the umbrella. Nobody lives over here anymore. This is nothing but dilapidated houses over here. You see, but obviously, I know that we're not going to get white people off of Christianity. They're just going to have to wake up. And I almost want the white nationalist and the 2025 project and all that. I almost want all that to happen because it's like the only way that you're going to get these white nationalist Christians to see that the capitalists do not want to pay them. You can get rid of all the black people, get rid of all the Mexicans, get rid of all the Muslims, and make America a white ethno state. That is still not going to change the system of serfdom, which is capitalism. Was Europe not a pretty much exclusively white environment? And what happened in Europe? It wasn't Lord of the Rings in Rivendell with the elves and shit. No, it was serfs. It was kings, queens, nobles, and peasants. That is your default culture. Since y'all love to use the word culture all the time, oh, it's black culture. No, black people exist in prolonged exposure to poverty. But your culture, even when you have all of the available resources and devices, all the things necessary to maintain a society, at the end of the day, y'all don't want to do it.
We can't afford to pay our teachers. We can't afford to pay our nurses. We can't afford to pay our hospitality workers. We can't afford to pay our auto workers. We can't afford to shift to green energy. We can't afford affordable housing. We can't afford universal education. We can't afford insulin, even though the patent was sold for $1. We can't afford to fix our homelessness problem. We can't afford to fix our electrical grid. We can't afford to forgive student loan debts. We can't afford to subsidize our education system or childcare. We can't afford maternity or paternity leave. We can't afford ensuring that no child goes hungry, even though we constantly throw away food. We can't afford to ensure every American has access to clean water. We can't afford to fix our roads or our electrical grids or our bridges. We can't afford a livable wage. We can't afford to work one job, and we definitely can't afford universal health care. But we can always afford violence.
See, black people, I give black people way more slack. Because with black people, there's a difference between when you want to do something but you can't do it because you don't have the resources to do it. But white people, right, the architects of white society, they actually can do something, but they don't want to do it. They actually can build more houses. I don't know why my voice just cracked, but they can build more houses. They just don't want to do it. Right? You got boomers, sitting at town hall meetings, go saying, not in my backyard. They don't want these houses, to be built around them. They don't want quote unquote affordable housing. Don't even call it affordable housing. Just build more houses.
I just got back from a public zoning hearing for real estate, and I have never seen one generation that will work so hard to keep the next generation from getting houses. So here's the backstory on this one. They're trying to develop some properties here in Washington, D.C., put a few hundred more units up. And if you've never been to a zoning hearing, part of what they do is they allow the public to testify. And I would say the average age of the people who are testifying is between 65 and 75 years of age. And one after another in procession, every single one is arguing that, hey, we can't build all these new houses. It's going to make the roads more busy. It's going to lower our property values. And when I say that, like, Americans might be the greediest people in the world, this is not hyperbole. This is me not just saying something for views. They are actively working to keep young Americans from being able to buy houses simply because they're trying to protect the equity in their house so that they can retire more easily. And this is like the most insane mindset in the entire world, that you have like one group of people that is going to work so hard and protest every single development and try to restrict the number of houses that young people have access to. So young people, if you want to have affordable housing, you need to start coming to these hearings. That's all I can tell you.
That would cause the property values on other houses to drop. But again, since everybody uses houses as their nest egg, Which again, it's the weirdest thing. Like, it's not even a nest egg anymore because the rent has gone up. So as a result, if a boomer bought a house and is sitting on a house and is like, "Oh, I'm good because my house is worth $1.5 million," okay, number one, who are you going to sell the house to, right? You could only essentially sell it to private equity, who is only going to enslave your children and your children's children and your children's children's children, dumbass. Okay, and then on top of that, if you sell your house, where are you going to move? Right? People used to move into, smaller houses, what would be called, they would go back down into quote unquote starter houses. Even if you could do that, okay, you go down and you go into a smaller house. Now you're raising the prices on those smaller houses that should be the starter homes for your fucking kids, dumbass. Right? Then if you decide, okay, I'm not going to move into a starter home, I'm going to move into, an apartment. Well, congratulations, you now get to pay $2,000 in rent, which is probably going to eat up most of your retirement. This is the system that you white boomers created. Okay? This is the glory, okay, of the superior race that is white people. This is the glory. This is what you all have either unknowingly created or viciously co-signed. You cannibalize your own kids. Again, as a black person who grew up in America and was basically raised underneath the umbrella of white supremacy and told that, white people run things because white people know what they're doing and white people are so smart and white people are just just everybody should aspire to be white people, right? Because that is the country that we grew up in. And then to watch you all fumble the ball. Oh yeah, we're looking at you sideways. That you have created a system that is not even sustainable. Chances are it wasn't even meant to be sustainable. It's an exploitative system. But I thought that there would be some sort of like governor on the shit. You know what I mean? That they wouldn't, push it to its limits to the point that it breaks.
Doozy, and I'm assuming this is for some sort of startup, but this is an opportunity, as stated in it looks like the latter half of the job description, that they preface or stress that this opportunity is not for people who need a stable and well-paying job. It's like, who doesn't need a stable and well-paying job? Isn't that the whole point of being on the job market? It just absolutely blows my mind that people think this way and think people should be excited about their crappy opportunity. And he says, we have a deep compassion for those in need of financial stability as we're in the same situation. So the company is admitting that they're not financially stable and they may not be able to pay you, but they want to stress that money is not all of our motivator for this company. Well, guess what? If it's your baby, maybe you can get away with that. But when you're expecting other people to come into your work for your baby, you better be paying them because that's what they're there for. So their goal is to fundraise soon.
Some people believe in the boom and bust and that it's a cycle like in the Matrix. They believe that things get built up and then they crash and then they get built up again and then they crash and then there's a war and all this other stuff. A guy in my comment section, he wrote an excellent comment. Just breaking down. I'm gonna use that comment. I'm using that comment. I'm gonna save that comment because it was just a beautiful breakdown, and it's so refreshing to read a comment from somebody who's critically thinking and gets it and shares the same thoughts and sentiments about what's really going on in the world. But these white folks that sit around and want to talk about Jesus all day, I'm sorry, but you guys are dumb. You guys are really dumb. You guys do not think in terms of how the world works and what are the motivations out here of why things are being done. There is no altruism. There is no benevolence floating around. No, this is about capitalism. This is about money. Y'all talk about Mexicans coming across the border and stealing jobs and all that crap that Trump was talking about. I got a way to solve that. Go after the people that are hiring them. Stop hiring them. They'll go home. If they can't eat and they can't support themselves, stop hiring them. create laws that severely punish people who hire them. But you're not going to do that because, again, y'all, the people that are a step up above the working class people, they want their cheap labor. So while they'll make noise about it and talk about crime and all this other shit, they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to put any teeth in it to prevent people from actually, exploiting those people, which undermines American wages. Everything is just a bunch of lip service, but many of you all are too stupid to get that. You don't see it for what it is. I guess black people see it more than y'all see it because black people, obviously, we're outside, we're outside being, this illusion of inclusion, that is America, and so we tend to look at things more objectively. You all tend to look at things with a rose tinted glasses about how the system actually works, and you believe that white people are the only great and good people in America, and if we got rid of everybody else, that America would just be beautiful. It would be Rivendell from Lord of the Rings. Y'all really believe that? At the end of the day, I'm still waiting for an answer on you telling me about how the white elites actually want to pay you. I'm still waiting on an answer. When they're doing everything, when they're calling people into the office and then firing everybody at once, right? When they're using contractors because they don't want to have to deal with having to pay payroll and giving you benefits and everything else. No. Let's just go find a contractor, go get a recruiting firm and let them deal with it. We don't want to deal with it. And then on top of that, when we decide that we want to let the person go, whenever this project is done, we can just get rid of them and hang over their head and say that, hey, we have a permanent position here, but we really don't care. You know, hell, we like to make fake job postings, and so we can collect people's resumes and then compare them internally to the resumes within our own company and see where we can make some changes internally. We don't really need this job, right? That is the system in which that you all have, created or allowed to fester, and it has festered to a point where this cancer, the stage 4 cancer, is about to kill you. But instead of realizing that it's about to kill you, you're out here, focused on, your ingrown toenail or something. It's a bunch of nonsense. They do not want to pay you. I cannot express that enough. The history shows that they do not want to pay you. All that you believe should be normalized, full medical and dental, paid holiday leaves, vacation time, right? All that you believe, that you are entitled to, white men had to fight for that shit. And you all seem to forget that. You all seem to think that the corporations and working class white men were high-fiving each other, and at the same time creating a fence to keep back the blacks. That's what you all believe. They're not your friend. As Captain Solo told me, the dynamics between the workers at a company and upper management is always hostile because upper management are always trying to find ways to what? Cut cost. Why? Because cutting cost increases profits. And they get to use that to get more investors by telling their shareholders how well they have done, and then obviously give out their dividends to the shareholders and all that shit. We live in a society now where, basically employees have no stake in the companies that they work for, and then on top of that, everything goes to the shareholders. The shareholders are the main focus. Right? I mean, it's so fake and phony that they fire people in one quarter to tell them that, hey, our quarterly earnings have went up. No, your quarterly earnings didn't go up. You just fired a bunch of people. Then you have the whole aspect of the, if you want your wages to go up, you need to jump from job to job every 2 years. Where is the stability in that? Again, this goes right back to the family. You want to talk about having these heteronormative, cisgendered, white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal families. Well, how can you have that if dad has to change jobs every 2 years or 3 years? How does that work? Where is the stability? And then you wonder why you got a bunch of young teenagers running around, street takeover. You want to wonder why you got young white teenagers shooting the fucking place up. You want to wonder why, right? You want to wonder why your self deletion rate is through the roof. You want to wonder why. You want to wonder why your birth rates are down in the gutter. You want to wonder why your marriage rates are down. You want to wonder why. Again, this is you all doing this to yourselves. This can't be blamed on anybody else. It's your system, bitch. It's your system. You're the majority. You're demographically the majority. You're 75% of the population. You do majority of the voting. You determine whether things swing one way or another. But the white global elites got you on some divide and conquer shit and got you, split up, liberal, conservative, and you guys are running around with these extreme points of view and hot button issues, and you can't get down to the money. Start talking about the money, and you'll see the white oligarchs get real nervous. Let the white conservatives and the white liberals form Voltron on gainful employment and building more houses, and so that people can start families, and watch the white global elite start freaking out. They don't want to pay anybody. They don't want to pay Americans the wages that Americans, feel that they deserve, and feel that, it's not even a feeling. It's just the reality of whatever the cost of living is. Every country has its own cost of living. And what has been allowed is, the whole free trade agreements and all that. You've allowed corporations to go and float around the world to find the cheapest the cheapest labor to produce its goods, and then bringing it back into the country tariff free. So they don't have to pay you anything in order to bring their goods back and sell their goods to you. But eventually it gets to a point where even the people within their own country cannot afford, the goods that are being made overseas for cheap. So it's funny how, and this is why the whole, the nomad workers and the people working remotely, has become a thing, because essentially that is what the corporations have done. The cost of living is cheaper elsewhere. So if you can work remotely, then you can basically live in another country and live for cheaper while getting paid the same amount. Right. But to me, I'm like, well, that's weird. How do you even have a country, when you have people living abroad? And then how do you maintain any sort of security in terms of intelligence and things like that when you got all these American citizens going abroad to other countries, and they're already resentful of America? It's only a matter of time before one of them, gets ran up on by freaking Dimitri, and it's like, hey, American, yes, yes, we need you to do this. This is for Mother Russia. You know what I mean? It's only a matter of time, or before some dude named Shang Shek walks up on an American in Bali and says, hey, you're an American, yeah, do this for us and we'll give you X amount of dollars, da 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 da. Go Google how many Americans have been caught up on some spying on the U.S. type of shit. They went abroad and they got coerced into doing some spy shit, and now are being sitting on trial or sitting in federal prison on treason charges. Go look that shit up. You see? So what else was I going to say about the whole, working abroad and whatnot? And it was something I was going to say about people working abroad, and there's no stability in this shit. It's just none. Just completely like America. Just at this point, it's not a place to live. It's just it's a place for economic opportunities for the people who are already wealthy to be able to exploit the rest of the world. Even with I remember what I was going to say, even with the whole, people working remotely. You know why banks are collapsing? Banks are collapsing. If you don't know, the banks are on the verge. Many banks are on the verge of collapsing, especially the smaller banks, because many of them had their investments in commercial real estate. Well, if people are working remotely, even around me, all of those big ass office corporate campuses, go drive around to your nearest corporate campus and you'll see that the parking lots are pretty much like maybe only 1/4 of the parking lot is full. Rest of the parking lot is empty. And you'll see the now leasing in the window. Yeah, because COVID disrupted everything and people, okay, stay home, work from home, and people don't want to go back. People don't want to sacrifice hours of their life anymore, of commuting, driving, a freaking, 45 minutes to an hour to get to work, right? Again, walking in the building, going up the elevator, getting to your cubicle, all that shit. And then you got to do, the same thing, going home. Then you finally get home. You know what I mean? You're exhausted because, again, you didn't spend all this time, burning up, not only, having wear and tear on your vehicle, but just the exhaustion of the commute. Now you're stuck in traffic. Then you're pumping all this, carbon monoxide into the air. Like it's like pointless if you can do it at home, right? And then on top of that, many people do need to they get to save on daycare if they're home. And like especially I know a number of women that are totally capitalizing on being, stay at home moms that are still working remotely, from home. So because they get to get their work done and, tend to their child and not have to spend $2,000 a month in daycare. That's another thing that, in my opinion, should be, federally subsidized, which is, daycare. I mean, people are not going to have kids if they can't afford kids. So, to all the white nationalists, or even the white people that are in our government that have white nationalist tendencies or suspected white supremacists, like, you guys make no sense. You make no sense. If I was king of Wakanda, I would not set up a system to where the Wakandans are not, like, the young Wakandans cannot produce children, and like that doesn't make any sense, because then you're going to end up with that inverted triangle, and you're going to have large elderly populations. You're not going to have enough productive individuals to tax to put into, any of the things like Medicare, Medicaid, freaking Social Security, none of that stuff. And those people will be left with nothing. And even right now, I mean, you're talking about the collapse of an empire, because if you look at the delay when it comes to millennials and zillennials getting their life started and being able to actually, have a home and contribute to any sort of savings or retirement, we're going to have a lot of people that are just going to be like homeless elderly people that don't have anything because they're not having kids. So there's going to be an even smaller population to take care of them, right? When you're old, and again, it's like even for me, like, I don't have any kids, right? So the whole trajectory of my future, has gone off in a different direction. You see? But even still, like, even the idea of even considering kids when the cost of living is so much, like people will sit there and they'll talk about, oh, being in healthcare, they make a lot of money. I'm like, well, yeah, that was like freaking 20 years ago. That was a lot of money. But not when the average home costs $430,000. And I'm talking about like shit that, like, in other words, you remember, I don't know if y'all remember that, like, it was like a poster. I'm gonna see if I can find it. It was a poster. It was in the 90s. I used to remember this shit. It was a poster that had a house, and the house had a whole bunch of had a garage, and it had all these luxury cars in front of it, right? And that used to be like the $1 million home to me. And now $1 million home is like the home I grew up in. And I'm like, how is this shit $1 million? You see this out in California, and you'll see it on the East Coast too. The closer you get to New York, I mean, just Zillow, like, North Jersey, just Zillow it, and you'll see, right? And I understand you're close to New York. New York, they make money and all this other stuff, but like, when you really look at these pieces of shit, these old ass built in 1968 pieces of shit that have just been molested, and people have made all type of stupid ass additions to it, and it's just cramped, and you're like, why? It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then you get down to this is a starter home, and then the starter home is just like, you know, like they wanted an astronomical amount of money for the starter homes. It's like if the the big houses are like $1 million, then the starter homes they want like 600 for like a 3-bedroom bungalow. You're like, what? What are you talking about, bro? Like, what are you talking about? Some people will say, well, where are they going to build these houses? Because if they build the houses, it's going to be, the commute's going to be, further out. And I'm like, I don't know why that's a problem when we're talking about, people can work remotely. Like them having a house is separate from them working remotely. People would work remotely in America if they could, if there was affordable housing. I mean, that is a big issue. And I like the video that there was some white guy from the UK. He made the video, or at least I think he's white. But the video was like the housing crisis is everything. And in that video, I think is like a year old. And in that video, he just broke down how much, it's like you can pretty much solve everything with making affordable housing. When people have to spend majority of their income on housing, then and on top of that, everything else. But I'm saying when people have to spend the majority of their income on housing, they're not going to have kids. It's just going to be delayed. And man, I mean, we're going to have some of the angriest, bitchiest women, coming very soon. All these women that, want to get married and they want stability, and there's no stability to be had. There's no stability to be had. All this, we're having such and such job. What type of jobs? We're having all this job growth. What type of jobs? What are those jobs paying? What are the wages for those jobs? Motherfuckers acting like you can support a family on fast food wages. Nonsense. Nonsense. You see, and then you sprinkle AI on all of this. Oh God, it just makes this whole situation even more complicated. But again, if all the old people that are about a decade away from not existing anymore, if all they want to do is hoard the wealth, well then, prepare to, go to the grave without having some grandchildren. Because that is going to be the reality. I mean, what is the whole point of sitting there? Oh, white supremacy, and you're not even passing on white supremacy. You're not even maintaining or preserving anything. We need to preserve our culture. Okay, how are you preserving your culture if your kids and grandkids can't even afford to freaking have children? Right? You guys are talking about, we need to preserve our culture and we need to keep the Civil War monuments up, and you wear your X and I'll wear mine, and it's not heritage, it's not hate, it's heritage, and all this other shit, right? I'm like, I mean, those damn monuments, your Ulysses S. Grant statues, and man, that shit'll be, covered over with or not Ulysses S. Grant. Who was the other guy, the Confederate guy? I can't even think of what his damn name is. Anyway, whatever your Confederate monuments are, like who's gonna be left? What white people are gonna be left to appreciate it? Seriously speaking, the way that y'all birth rates are going. I mean, it's just I've never seen. And you know what kills me the most? You know why I mock white people when it comes to this? Because much of their inaction is based off of their racism and hatred of black people, right? Because when everything was good and they could make a living and everything, they just loved, my bootstraps, personal responsibility, and you black people, you're all just lazy, and that's what the problem is, right? Just completely ignoring the ways in which black people were discriminated against, right? And they're so stuck in that mindset, that they're so stuck in that rhetoric, that the policies that should be put in place to, transfer the wealth from the ruling elite class to the average citizen, they won't do, because they all believe that, no, we must support, the most extreme, unregulated form of capitalism, because, I might be up there one day. I might be able to start a company and become the next Bill Gates. And so I got to make sure, that those avenues stay open so that I can become filthy rich and everybody around me can barely be making it. Right? I mean, where is the collective, my brother sort of concepts that you all claim that you have when it comes to whiteness? I don't see that. Right? You want to talk about black people and inner city violence and everything else? Like, first off, y'all, again, black people have been put in a precarious situation. You all, have been the dominant force, and you end up having mass shooters and shit and whatnot. What is that about? What are y'all so angry about? You're on top. What are you so angry about? Right? And then again, you focus on the wrong targets. You focus on the wrong individuals. You focus on the powerless, and you blame the powerless. You don't blame the banks. You don't blame the corporations. You don't blame, the people that decide that they're going to move their company to Chile, right? You don't blame them. No, 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 no. You blame the black people stuck in the ghetto being marginalized by this system. It's unbelievable. But, this is the world that we live in. But anyway, I just needed to get that off my chest, because I'm just sitting here like just watching, these white guys just babble over the intangibleness of Jesus and Christianity, and how the real problem is, the lack of Christianity. No, the real problem is that the American dream no longer exists, and that the cost of living has gone up astronomically, and the fact that your 24-year-old son can't move out because he can't afford to pay his $2,000 rent anywhere. Anywhere from $1,800 to $2,000, because the shitty ass job he works, despite having a college degree and student loan debt, he can't afford to pay either one of them off. So now he's living with you in your basement, and you're running around saying that the problem with the world is the blacks. That's your answer, right? The problem with the world is the Mexican rapist coming across the border. That's what the problem is, right? And the crazy thing is, even when it comes to the Latinos coming across the border, right? Why are they coming across the border? I think you need to look into the U.S. foreign policy and the CIA and how they've destabilized Latin America. I think you need to look into the history of that before you decide to sit there and say, oh, they're coming here because we're so great and they need to come here and they need to respect the culture. I'm like, you destabilize their house, so here they come into the country to destabilize yours. The funny thing is, they're being allowed to come in because, again, the white oligarchs, they want their cheap labor. And again, they don't care about preserving whiteness, because if you're not having babies, they need to maintain the population. And the easiest and fastest way to maintain the population is to bring in immigrants. But again, you all fail to be able to wrap your heads around this. Anyway, that's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.
Cindy! Get away from her! On the floor!
Rise and shine. Happy birthday, by the way. Very nice place you've got here. You really did cash in on everyone else getting foreclosed, didn't you? Today you're gonna make up for that. We'll do exactly what we say, or we will field dress her like a deer. Your kid, too. You're coming with us. No matter what happens, you get yourself to Times Square. Tell Treadway Subject 4 is activated.
Product not yet rated.
This is the day we've been waiting for. Years of training, years of sacrifice. This is for the jobs you streamlined, the debts you collected. This is for the homes you foreclosed on, the bailouts you took. We are the true patriots. It's time for a new balance of power.